we had a musical frickin' episode of Strange New Worlds this week. This is the first time in Star Trek's history that they've had a musical episode. Now, it's not to say that they've never had music in Star Trek before. Uhura would sing songs on occasion in the original series. There has been, little bits and pieces. Like there have been episodes focused in like Voyager that were focusing on the Doctor's love of opera and singing. So you have music all throughout Star Trek, but this is like, if you've ever seen the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Once More with Feeling, the musical episode of Buffy, this is very obviously and basically blatantly an homage to that episode. Now, it's called Subspace Rhapsody. And if you're worried that it's going to seem a little silly that they're doing some like weird science fiction thing that turns them all into a musical, like, it is very silly. It is a stupid science thing that turns it into a musical. Don't go into this one expecting something serious. Like with the Buffy episode, the main thrust of this is to get characters to express their inner emotions, things that they wouldn't have otherwise revealed, because the universe now works on musical logic, and so when your emotions are too strong to talk, you have to sing it instead. And so you get a bunch of that. Now, not all of the songs are like super memorable or anything like that, but there's some like kind of showstoppers. Like there's one number where Christine Chapel, who has just gotten in a prestigious fellowship and is going to leave the Enterprise for several months, where she is celebrating it at the ship's lounge, and Spock comes in and is like, because Spock and Christine have been a thing, but she hadn't told him about it, and so like she kind of does like a whole girl boss song, where in the song she basically says she's breaking off whatever thing that they had, so she dumps him in song, and then Spock goes and does like a dark reprise of that song. And I thought those two were very strong elements to the show. We also have Jim Kirk in this episode again. He's showing up to like shadow some of the crew, because he has not officially been made first officer of the Farragut, but it's scheduled to happen, and so he's just like shadowing other executive members of crew to learn the ropes before he gets the position himself. And so he's there, and now he and Spock, they don't really have too much of an interaction, although there is like one moment early on when Spock is using a bunch of technobabble to try and explain why they're in a musical now, and Kirk goes like, "Mr. Spock, you explained that very well. I almost understood it." And like he gives him a little smirk that was like kind of flirty. And Kirk's main purpose in this episode is actually for La'an, because La'an, several episodes ago, had that whole time travel adventure with an alternate version of Kirk where she kind of fell for him. And even though that alternate version of Kirk is now gone, and she's not really supposed to talk about it because, you don't want to mess up the timeline too much, she does, she's actually worried that she's gonna break out into song and confess to him, so she actually has just a sit-down conversation with him. And that's actually one thing that La'an brings up, is we have to figure out a way to stop the musical stuff from happening because it's a security risk, because we are expressing emotional truths about ourselves that we wouldn't otherwise reveal. But as she is laying out in broad strokes her experience with the alternate Kirk, and how that Kirk made her feel, because that Kirk didn't see her as a descendant of Khan, because in that alternate timeline he had never heard of Khan. Khan didn't exist. So it was nice to just be seen for who she was, and to see that there's hope for her in the future beyond just hanging on to the legacy of her ancestor. And so, she lays cards out on the table and says that she's got feelings for Kirk, and he's flattered. But at this point, he is actually dating Carol Marcus, and she's pregnant with his son. So kind of La'an put herself out there and got rejected. But I don't think that's going to be it. And we don't see Carol Marcus, but I would not be surprised if in season 3 they bring her on as a character to have another love triangle with Spock, La'an, and Carol. And considering that we've got the love triangle with Kirk and Chapel and T'Pring, if you hook up Kirk and Spock more, that could be a love hexagon. There's a lot of potential for there. The musical reality is originally just There's a subspace fold that they've been running experiments on because they think they can use it to increase the broadcast speed of subspace. And the whole thing starts when they use music as a test broadcast on the thing. And it initially starts just around the Enterprise, but then it starts spreading to other ships in the fleet, and it eventually crosses over into Klingon space. And so the Klingons wants to come and blow up the subspace fold, even though that will like destroy the entire quadrant as they discover. So they're like, we've got to find another way to close this thing before the Klingons show up. And the Klingon captain who's showing up to like blow it up is played by Bruce Horak, who was Hemmer in the first season. So I am glad that even though they killed off Hemmer, he's still here. He's still getting to do stuff, because we had an episode where we got to see like flashbacks of Hemmer. So Bruce Horak, even though they killed him off last season, he's still acting, he's still on the show. I would not be opposed to seeing more of this Klingon in the future. But one thing that I do have an issue with, they have a brief musical number with the Klingons, and I would have liked it to be something more Klingon-y in nature. It seems like the Klingons were affected with a human Broadway musical virus, which, you know, it definitely explains why they want to destroy the thing, because they feel that this musical reality has impugned their honor. And so when they like break into song, it's not Klingon-y at all. And that took me out of it a little bit. Like, you know, it could be played for humor in that way. But I think if of all of the songs in this episode, I think the little Klingon one was probably my least favorite, though it was funny. But that being said, this is a fantastic episode. I had mentioned earlier that this is kind of an homage to the Buffy episode, and when they're like explaining how the subspace thing has like started altering reality, it's like an improbability field that has changed the local reality to be a reality that operates on musical logic. Then somebody suggests, well, we better stop this before the improbability field goes further and like does something like turn us all into bunnies. And then Spock goes, I doubt we will be bunnies. And specifically bunnies like that, I know has to be a reference to the Buffy musical, because Anya, the demon turned human, who's part of the Scooby Gang on Buffy, has like an irrational fear of bunnies, and she believes that bunnies are actually evil spirits or something like that. And so she has like this whole aside in one of the songs where she just rants about how bunnies are terrifying. I have to imagine that bringing up specifically bunnies in a musical episode was a reference to that. But anyway, it's another great episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We've got the finale next week, and now I haven't looked into any, I don't know if they've got any previews for it or anything like that, but I don't know what it's going to be about. However, I imagine there's probably going to be something about the Gorn, because we haven't seen the Gorn all season, and they kind of teased that the Gorn were like a building threat in like the first episode of this season. So I imagine, since they want the Gorn to be kind of the Klingons of this series, that we're going to see another Gorn episode next week. But I could be wrong, and by the time this comes out on YouTube as a segment, we'll know what the broad strokes of what the episode is, because they always come out with promo material for it anyway. So if you're not watching this live, by the time you see this, I am either proven right or wrong. Anyway, great episode, 10 out of 10, check it out. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like, and subscribe, and ring the bell. I stream these reviews every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons, with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Ryan D. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.